Silver didn't have a bad day, but gold, well, it raced past silver today, blowing it out of the water in terms of price performance. I'm going to tell you what happened and why this is occurring and why silver stackers should be patient and hold fast to your silver. Let's talk about it as we explore. What a wild day in the markets indeed. I mean, not a massively dramatic move in terms of either metal, but nonetheless, gold is up 2.75% as I report to you as markets are closing very soon. Gold is up almost $90 right now to $3,330.70. That's a pretty big move for gold. Silver didn't do too bad, but its performance was less than half of what gold did today. It's up just over 1%, up 34 cents, still below that critical $33 mark, resting at $32.42. Platinum and palladium have actually fallen today. But this is a time when we're seeing the movements in the markets, and there's reasons behind that today. We're going to talk a little bit about what gold did, and then how silver reacted here. But no matter what your schedule is in terms of buying, dollar cost averaging, I think, is key here. And there may be times to buy at these price points, especially if you're averaging through the course of time. You just may buy a little bit less when the prices move up like this. Although silver, I think, has a lot more room to move to the upside, especially in comparison to where the gold to silver ratio was in the past, although that should be less and less of a guide nowadays. But when you're making your decisions to buy, do your research. See if you can find the best service for the best price possible. I think given those two things, Summit Metals beats every other dealer out there. They have some of the lowest prices and great customer service. I've witnessed it not only being sponsored by them, but I've tested it out for myself, making orders anonymously. So check them out at summitmetals.com and see if it's right for you. But price compare and see what you're looking for, if they've got the best price. Now, what's going on today? I'm going to be referencing an article here from Sarah Qureshi about gold gaining and what's behind it. Well, the dollar is weakening some, driven by a weaker dollar and safe haven demand. Safe haven demand essentially is what we're seeing more and more, and there's people that are still nervous about tariffs and other things. There's mixed news in that with regard to that, but the dollar weakness is something that is playing a role here as it's down some, still below 100. And still, the dollar is strong compared to other currencies, but it's sitting at 99.8 right now. Now, this is making, essentially, when the dollar is down, that makes bullion essentially less expensive for other currency holders, but it raises the price in U.S. dollars here. Donald Trump announced a 100% tariff on movies produced overseas, reigniting concerns about the potential fallout of a global trade war. Although I would say that, with what Hollywood does and their participation overall in the economy, I think that's not as big a deal as some would suspect. Obviously, many films or parts of films are filmed overseas for a good reason, because of location is everything in terms of where some films are made, and especially if it's the theme of the movie, or locations call for it to be the case. So who knows? We'll see how that works out, but we're seeing continued flow of safe haven demand, keeping gold prices elevated. Prices are going to trade above $3,000 level for at least the near term, according to Jim Wyckoff, senior analyst at Kitco News. I don't think any change in interest rates is expected at this meeting that's coming up, but we'll be watching to see if the Fed is leaning in a particular way. Traders await Fed Chair Jerome Powell's comments that are due later this week on Wednesday to get clues on the central bank's rate path. The Fed has held its policy rate at the 4.25% and 4.5% range since December. The Fed is expected to leave interest rates unchanged at this meeting, but it may be the last where the outcome is so cut and dry, with Trump's tariffs casting a shadow of uncertainty over the economic outlook. Gold, which is considered a hedge, against uncertainty and tends to thrive in a low interest rate environment, has hit multiple record highs and gained over 26% so far this year. And I tell you, this is important because I think that is part and parcel as to why we're seeing major news breaking out across the country. In fact, I posted a video earlier this morning that I hope you will check out. I'm going to link to it at the end screen later in the video. It's going to be right up there. And there is a state that is actually considering moving to, in part, a gold standard. That's right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But I hope you will check that video out. That's big news, and a lot of people missed that video this morning. And we're seeing what's happening is with gold doing this. What's propping gold up, and why can't silver catch up? Well, again, I'm sort of in the area of being somewhat wishy-washy with regards to manipulation and how that affects the price of silver. There's a lot I don't know about it, admittedly. I've not seen actually any hard evidence of it. Remember this community Stacker Factor, who you should check him out on YouTube, mentioned that the vast majority of banks are who deal with the futures market with silver. And so if they're trading back and forth with the futures market in silver, and that lends to credence to this idea that it could be suppressed. What would their motivation be for doing that? I don't know, because it seems like the big motivation to keep it down would be, geared more towards the threat of it as a sound money to compete against the dollar, but also more industry and business would want to keep it down so that they can get more of it, so that they can essentially provide products, and with the silver price being lower. But I still think there's a lot of wiggle room there because of the amount of silver for each product, and they just pass that increase on to us, and for each product it's not going to be that much, even if silver's price were to double, considering the amount of silver used in most of the electronics. Still, collectively it's a lot, but I digress. But again, that's a very oversimplified version of it. But nonetheless, we know there is manipulation. I've talked about it on this channel. But I think the biggest thing that's happening now is why gold is doing so well and silver is not, is because it has a strong support because of what central banks are doing. Central banks are storing a lot of it. Central banks, by the way, they also store dollars, foreign exchanges. But gold and silver definitely are metals, or actually gold is what they store, not silver. And precisely because of that, even though there has been some talk about strategic stockpiles of silver that some countries like Russia are getting for their military use and applications, it's not necessarily seen as a tier 1 asset or stored like gold is, for the reasons that gold is stored. So gold is crushing silver because whenever there's uncertainty, they go there first. Gold is treasured, and it's precisely because it's treasured as to why central banks are holding it. You can pack a lot of value in a small space, and so traders, they typically will lean in that direction more so than silver, as it's seen more as an industrial metal. The natural market forces weigh heavily on the daily and monthly and weekly price moves of a metal, and silver is following gold, but much less so now. The gold to silver ratio, because of that, is now increased to 103.08 right now. That's crazy. So, that's well above 100, staying above 100. This means that there is a lot more that is propping gold up because of what central banks are doing to hold it and hang on to it, and other entities as well. I did a video about what's happening with other private institutions accumulating stockpiles of gold to the tune of like 7.7 tons of it. Yeah, crazy. And now with states thinking about doing this, we know we have the Texas Bullion Depository and other states that are thinking about it. We very well could see other areas and other types of institutions hold on to gold and stockpile it. And we may see some of that with silver, but silver is really essentially moving because there's some uncertainty with regards to what's going to happen with demand. FX Leaders makes a report about this, about silver is bouncing after 4 days of losses. And the bounce comes as geopolitical concerns over U.S. and China trade talks are back in play, and investors are seeking safe haven assets. China's Commerce Ministry has acknowledged a U.S. proposal to restart trade talks in line with President Trump's comments that talks are underway, but he said there's no immediate plans to meet President Xi Jinping. This has added more uncertainty to the market, and silver is in demand. Meanwhile, the U.S. dollar is weakening, making silver cheaper for international buyers. A weaker dollar is a short-term positive for silver. The dollar is weakening due to trade concerns and Trump's proposal to impose a 100% tariff on foreign-made films. Now, there's some clouds, economic clouds over industrial demand, and that's just it. There is some debate as to how much demand there is for supply out there. But no matter what, everybody agrees that it is tightening if it's not already the demand is exceeding supply. Despite the short-term bounce, silver's industrial demand outlook is still shaky. Recent data from both the U.S. and China show economic slowdown. U.S. economy contracted 0.3% in the first quarter, its first quarterly decline in 3 years, and is raising concerns about domestic momentum. China's National Bureau of Statistics reported its manufacturing PMI fell to a 16-month low, with export orders seeing the biggest drop since 2022. Silver, which is both a financial asset but mostly an industrial metal, may be pulled in opposite directions as macro forces compete. There's your reason, folks. And this is why these are natural market forces. And even though I'm open-minded to this idea of silver price suppression, this is a bigger deal. And this is a bigger mover. And it's about the idea of what we're looking at here is this of what the net moves these metals. Silver is an industrial metal. And so if there's less demand for it because of slower economic conditions, that's going to weigh on the price. And we've seen that happen before. And we are seeing it happen, I think, to some extent right now. And so all eyes are now on what the Federal Reserve is going to do. I think if they were to lower rates, especially in a surprise move, that's going to help silver. If they lower rates again, not this meeting, but next meeting, that's still going to help silver to some extent. But folks, we got to be prepared that we have to for this high gold to silver ratio. And it's going to be less and less of a factor in terms of the price movement, unless, of course, gold is sold off by some of these central banks. So until such a time, gold is going to leave silver in the dust. Let me know what your thoughts are about the markets today. And again, check out this video right here about the big news that happened in a state potentially moving to a gold standard. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.